June 18th. When I sit down, it's not into the chair, but into the heat, unpredictable, coming at me like waves. Hard to breathe on a day like today, but it's so wonderful, slow and easy. Jazzed and excited, I'm thinking about many things, not sticking on any one of them, living in a kaleidoscope of worlds, each unique to its own moment of time, with just an aftertaste, an aroma remaining. A vortex of energy is keeping me from just being, simply and precisely here. I step out of the cabin into the trees to take a pee. There is a dark chill in the middle of the day. The wind blows in my face as if something urgent. Leaves shake and chipmunks chatter. What is this chill? I feel it inside my heart. So gently rain brings water into water. Still as the rain, I watch its single circles form, as if they were moments finding moments. Small as a bullet at first, then searching for edges, leaving all across the pond like poetry, lines reaching out to other lines, racing to communicate. A warm breeze with honeysuckle enters my body like a couch to curl up upon, or like a spirit, a knowing, mysterious, that I let in because of its gentle presence. Like honey on cornbread, it soaks the tips of my senses through, till I no longer know what is spirit, what is sense. What I want more than anything is to listen to the wind, or to myself, which is the same thing, to feel the wind inside me as I breathe, and how it passes back out again into the green world's breaths of blackberry blossoms, of fresh-cut grasses, or the tar of railroad ties. Postscript. I am enormously optimistic about life, about the underlying nature of things. My lifelong exploration of the present moment daily confirms this optimism, though the kind of freedom I explore is fragile, along with all forms of human freedom, not only to nature but also to civilization. Sad to say, but all creatures have become vulnerable to civilization, as it has so suddenly spread across the world. As a species that creates its cultural forms and lives in them, we must adapt quickly to our new reality and transform ourselves from tribal cultures in competition or at war to a culture that is global in its care and concern, creating environments where all creatures thrive. We must shift from an orientation that is self-centered and self-serving to one that is kind. We have no choice. We will be the shepherds of the planet or be its scourge. Too quickly, our individual faults can be magnified 1,000,000-fold by hierarchies of power. And almost overnight, our anger, our prejudice, our autocracy and inequality, our pollution, our cynicism and distrust, our greed and our lies can threaten the whole species and many others with it. It is not greed alone and its like that is our problem, but that we have enshrined systems that reward greed over kindness and wisdom. We must alter, in short order, both the greed within us and the systems that enable it. Just a couple of cultural changes dedicated to human flourishing could reduce these dangers overnight. One addresses the flaws in our own individual natures, our greed and fear that arise as misinterpretations of our relationship to the present moment and to the nature of time and space. The other addresses the great and sudden power of hierarchies to create harmful, negative externalities out of even profound aspirations for good. The map of mindfulness. There's a graphic here that looks like an hourglass, or like a black hole at the center, and a universe above it and below it. In the top oval of that hourglass are time and space, self, and civilization. Going down the left-hand side of the hourglass toward the present moment, which is at the center, are listening and mindfulness. And going up from the present moment back toward the oval of civilization and self and time and space are engagement and compassion. The present moment can be experienced in two ways: as a mirror of awakening or a mirror of forgetfulness. It can be experienced as awake and conscious, or reactive and unconscious. Beneath the present moment, within the center of the hourglass, is cultivating selflessness. And the bottom oval contains great quiet, great virtue, and great spirit. This is all drawn from my book, A Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness. The first cultural change would be to understand the world as it is, not as a Cartesian grid of time and space from which we mine material and mental wealth, but as a great flourishing of the present moment filled with virtue, relationship, and creative engagement. This understanding can be accomplished with the utmost simplicity by replacing our familiar maps of space-time with a map of mindfulness centered on the present moment, the only moment we've ever experienced and the only place freedom resides. And then to practice the art of the present moment through a daily contemplative practice like mindfulness. I tell my students, if they are just beginners, to practice mindfulness 20 minutes a day at a minimum, and if they are already accomplished meditators, to double the amount they are currently meditating. You can't do too much. It will increase both your energy and your ease, and will spread well-being to all whom you encounter. It will increase freedom throughout the world. The map of mindfulness is a map of the world as it is. It includes time and space, but is centered on and arises out of the present moment, less acquisitive and analytic than it is relational and expansive. Mastery of the present moment is the greatest thing we can accomplish in our lives. When you focus on the present moment with mindfulness, you cultivate selflessness, graciousness, kindness, listening more than engaging, patience, clarity, equanimity, energy, wisdom, relationships, and great hearts. You cultivate emotional intelligence and virtue more than analytic and acquisitive skills, reducing greed and fear everywhere. Fiduciary responsibility. My one-sentence legislative proposal. A fiduciary standard of obligation is required for all institutions, corporate, nonprofit, and governmental, to place the interests of all stakeholders, of truth, of humanity, democracy, and the living planet that sustains us, first, above their own self-interest. I support making fiduciary in all things the law of the land. The second cultural change we must accomplish is to make certain that every institution, every hierarchy of power in civilization, is dedicated to human flourishing and freedom. With a simple piece of legislation and a good deal of hard work, we can end war, corruption, autocracy, distrust, prejudice, gross inequality, famine, racism, propaganda and false news, and earth dangers fostered by humanity. 250 years ago, our great explosion of growth and innovation began, with dramatic increases in human knowledge, leisure, and longevity. Extraordinary. And yet you would think that by now, after 250 years of development, at the top of every hierarchy of power, and filtering all the way down, we would find the very best of humanity, our wisdom and compassion. But instead, most of us would be hard-pressed to name even a single such hierarchy permeated by the best of humanity. It's time we did. By a simple legislative tweak to the organization and creation of every institution, whether corporate, governmental, or nonprofit, requiring them all to place first in their responsibility a fiduciary obligation to all we hold dear, so that their first impulse is always to act humanely, and so our first and everlasting experience of them is one of trust. Supporting humanity in this way must be a requirement for any institution to exist, the ticket to becoming a corporation, a government, or a nonprofit, and to maintaining that status. These reflections on Spectacle Pond in spring were composed as daily reminders to live in the present moment, alive to our senses, and to who we are, and to turn us, as if glancing in a mirror toward what has been hidden, toward Mother Nature, and toward our face before it was born. There we understand how perfectly a rainy day poem, even on a sunny day, can find its home as a reflection in the clear waters of Spectacle Pond. George Kinder is a poet, photographer, Buddhist meditation teacher, author, and a global thought leader in the financial world. His life work is the present moment.